When Officer Rogers arrived at the apartment complex, terrified neighbors were already screaming that children were still trapped inside the burning building. Thick, black smoke poured through the doorway, while flames began crawling up the walls behind shattered windows. Most people outside were backing away from the fire in panic, but the moment Rogers heard that a family was still inside, he did the exact opposite. Without waiting for firefighters, without protective gear, without knowing if the building was about to collapse, he ran directly into the smoke. At first, the scene looked completely out of control. Residents stood outside yelling over each other while smoke filled the entire stairwell. Somewhere inside the apartment, a mother and her children were still trying to escape, and every second that passed made the situation worse. The fire was spreading fast enough that many people watching from outside believed nobody trapped inside would make it out alive. That is what makes stories like this so powerful. Officer Rogers was not a firefighter. He was a police officer responding to an emergency call like countless others before it. Yet, the moment he realized children might still be trapped inside the flames, his instincts changed immediately. For officers like him, protecting lives comes before personal safety, even when the danger is impossible to ignore. As Rogers approached the entrance, the heat from the fire was already becoming overwhelming. Smoke rolled out of the apartment so heavily that visibility inside had almost completely disappeared. Neighbors continued shouting desperately from outside while patrol lights reflected across the smoke-filled parking lot. Somewhere behind those flames, a family was still fighting to survive. Inside the building, the situation was becoming terrifyingly chaotic. Rachel Blaylock, the mother trapped inside, was desperately trying to protect her children while searching for a way out through the smoke. Every hallway seemed darker. Every breath became harder. And with flames spreading nearby, panic was beginning to take over. Meanwhile, Officer Rogers disappeared into the smoke without knowing exactly what waited ahead. That is one of the most dangerous realities of entering a burning structure. Visibility disappears almost instantly. Officers can become trapped, disoriented, or overcome by smoke within moments. Yet, despite all of that, Rogers kept moving deeper into the apartment, searching for the family. Outside, witnesses could barely see anything through the thick smoke pouring from the building. Some residents later described feeling helpless as they watched the officer vanish into the flames alone. Others feared the worst almost immediately, because from the outside it looked impossible that anyone could survive inside for long. Then suddenly, movement appeared through the smoke. But at first, nobody outside could fully understand what they were seeing. Through the chaos and flashing lights, Officer Rogers emerged carrying a small child in his arms while guiding the terrified family toward safety. And even then, the danger was far from over. The little girl he carried was only 4 years old. Surrounded by smoke, confusion, and fear, she had been trapped inside the burning apartment moments earlier. Her mother later admitted she did not know how she would have escaped with both children alone. In the middle of pure chaos, Rogers became the difference between survival and tragedy. What makes the story even more emotional is what happened next. After helping the family escape, Rogers reportedly wanted to go back inside the burning building again. While most people outside were still trying to process what had just happened, his focus remained entirely on whether anyone else might still be trapped inside the fire. That detail says everything about the mentality of officers willing to risk their lives for strangers. In moments like these, there is no time for hesitation or careful planning. Decisions happen instantly. And for Rogers, the decision was simple. If people were still inside, he was going back into the flames. As firefighters finally arrived and emergency crews took control of the scene, the emotional weight of what had happened began settling over everyone outside. Families hugged each other while smoke continued pouring into the night sky. Neighbors who moments earlier believed they were about to witness a tragedy now realized they had just watched an extraordinary act of courage unfold in front of them. Across Tennessee, the story quickly spread online and through local news stations. Body cam footage and witness accounts turned Officer Rogers into a symbol of something Americans deeply admire: ordinary people making impossible decisions under pressure to save complete strangers. Because at the center of the story was not just a fire. It was a man choosing sacrifice over fear. The emotional reaction grew even stronger once people learned Rogers entered the apartment without firefighting equipment. No oxygen tank, no protective suit. Just a police officer hearing that children were trapped and deciding that waiting outside was not an option. That reality transformed the story from dramatic to unforgettable. For many Americans, stories like this represent the side of policing that often goes unnoticed. The moments where officers become rescuers, protectors, and guardians during the worst moments of someone else's life. And while headlines often focus on conflict, stories like this remind communities why so many officers still inspire respect across the country. Then finally, as smoke continued drifting above the apartment complex and emergency lights illuminated the parking lot, the full outcome became clear. Officer Rogers successfully rescued the mother and her children from the burning apartment before the situation turned fatal. What could have ended in unimaginable tragedy instead became a story of survival, because one officer chose to run toward the fire while everyone else was running away. Long after the flames were extinguished, one truth remained impossible to ignore. America is still filled with men and women willing to risk everything for people they have never met. Officer Rogers did not stop to calculate the danger or wait for someone else to act. He heard that children were trapped inside a burning building, and he went in anyway. And maybe that is why stories like this resonate so deeply, because they remind people that real heroism often begins the moment someone chooses courage over fear.